Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. Today's guest is Adrina, who's an accountant and bookkeeper in California. You're listening to the Legal Paige podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. Now, Adrina is the owner and accountant at Accounting by Adrina. She has a master's in business administration and accounting from the University of Laverne. Before jumping in full-time into her accounting and bookkeeping business, she worked in leadership positions within accounting departments for large media organizations based out of Los Angeles, California, you guys. Her goal as an accountant and bookkeeper is to be a key business partner to her clients and help them reach their financial goals by developing budgets to plan and forecast their business financials. She currently lives in Pasadena, California, and enjoys spending time with loved ones and watching movies in her spare time. She is here to talk all about bookkeeping for you all, which is one of those topics that we sort of love and sort of love to dislike. But I think it's so important as business entrepreneurs to have someone in our corner like Adrina that can teach us how to be better record keepers. So let's get to it, you guys. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the Legal Paige podcast today. I am excited to introduce you guys today to Adrina. She is here to talk all about bookkeeping. Hello, Adrina.
Hi, Paige.
I am so glad you're here. This is a topic that all of us business owners need to hear about because some of us are not good at bookkeeping. But I know you really well. You guys, Adrina is Accounting by Adrina. You can find her everywhere. She was in my online mastermind this past round, and I loved coaching her and working with her. She's helped so many other mastermind girls with bookkeeping. She's just a true joy, a total giver, and I have loved having you as part of the group, Adrina. So I know you really well, but I want you to introduce yourself to everyone tuning in today.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's been so great being part of your mastermind group, and I highly recommend it to those of you out there who are considering it. So just a little bit about me. I grew up believing that I was going to be an actress. I mean, maybe even on Broadway.
I love that.
My mom, she saw it early on in me, though. I think it was third grade. She was like, Adrina, are you sure you don't want to be an accountant like your uncle? I'm like, Mom, of course I want to be an actress. And being the loving mom that she was, she just nodded and smiled. But it really wasn't until college when I started working in AP for an engineering firm where things really started to click. Mm-hmm. I was really fortunate enough to get a job as an accountant right after that, where the outgoing accountant was actually, she was retiring, so she gave a few months notice. So they were able to train me and get me up to speed and everything. So at that point, I decided to bite the bullet and just go for my MBA in accounting. And now I've been working in accounting as an accountant for about 15 years.
Wow. You are one of my little secret weapons that I'm just going to push to everyone when anyone wants someone that's one, the most vivacious accountant ever, and two, loves what she does, and three, has been doing it for a very long time, so she has lots of expertise. I just love you. And I love your little story about being an actress. Side note, I totally did theater for 12 or 15 years growing up.
No way.
Yes. I went to performing arts camp in the summer. I've probably been in 30 plus theater shows with our local theater here in town. It's called Missoula Children's Theater. They go around the country in little red trucks. I don't know. Anyway, that is so cool. So now I feel we're totally kindred spirits with our actress and acting endeavors.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, but back to the topic at hand, because I can get off topic and I'm trying not to be. Tell me more about bookkeeping. What is it? Why do people need to know about it? Why is it super important for us as business owners?
Yeah, bookkeeping. So here's what I would say. As far as bookkeeping is concerned, it's just a fancy way of saying record keeping. Now, I want to put this out there. Bookkeeping is not something to shy away from. Not only is it a way to help manage your money, but it also becomes super useful during tax time. So whether or not you like it, we are all in need of managing our books. And, as a business owner, I take responsibility for the money that I bring in, as well as the money that goes out. Mm-hmm. So I would also expect that every other business owner out there would do the same.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we like to have the cha-ching moments, and we like it when it hits our bank account or hits our PayPal account or Stripe account. But I would say that's kind of where things like stop for a lot of business owners and people just starting out. They don't really know how to do bookkeeping very well. We like to see these dollar signs, but we really need to, I love how you said, take responsibility for it. So I want you to tell everyone how to do that. So there's this problem with either like doing bookkeeping or hiring the right person. And why is it such a problem for us as business owners?
Yeah, I think the problem is sometimes we don't know what to look for when we're hiring a bookkeeper. And I think finding the wrong person is a problem. I think someone who just says that they're a bookkeeper but doesn't have the experience or the backing behind it could actually create more work down the line than you really want. So I'll give you a couple examples of this too, because I've seen it not only in professional workplaces, but I've also seen it kind of like taking on new clients and taking over bookkeeping for some of the clients. It's like, oh my gosh, this bookkeeper didn't know what they were doing. And it happens, in the professional workplace where people are categorizing things in a weird way. And so you have to go back and kind of like clean up and then research. You're like, wait, I don't know what this is. So then that takes a lot more time. Mm-hmm. So finding the right person, I think, is a problem. And I think people just don't know the questions to ask and how to do it. And I think what business owners really need to do is sort of do their own vetting as far as like the bookkeeping and accounting firm is concerned. But here's what I would say. The reality is most of us cannot afford to hire a bookkeeper when starting out your business. But I think if you are a business owner, you're just getting started, you are a smart, educated, savvy individual who's got enough know-how to start a business.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I mean, you're starting one. So
yeah,
why do we leave this like for the last thing on our checklist to do? I don't know. It's one of those things people just brush under the rug. I don't know why.
Yeah. And I think what I feel like I want to tell the people who are listening is you can do your own bookkeeping to start. Mm-hmm. It does not have to be complicated. And when you are starting, think in terms of like the number of transactions that are happening in your bank account, maybe in your credit card. As far as your business accounts are concerned, there's not a lot going on. And so it's easier for you to manage it. So I've got a few takeaways for this.
Perfect.
So I think the first thing that what we could do as business owners just getting started with our bookkeeping is to keep good records. So Paige, I love using systems.
They're important.
Systems help keep things organized. It helps keep me organized. So I would say find a system that you can use to keep good records and start immediately. So that way when things do ramp up, when you do grow your business, you can trust that the system you have in place will be a strong foundation. And there's all sorts of apps out there. There's I use Asana, there's Evernote, there's all sorts of things that you can do to help keep you organized. And so I would really recommend try to find the system that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a couple of things where you want to keep good records on. First of all, I would say you want to make sure that every expense that you are charging to your business is substantiated, meaning there's an invoice attached to it and you know what the charge is. And you know what the charge is for, because part of bookkeeping is actually knowing how to categorize those expenses. So when you see a charge coming in, try to categorize that. Think in terms of kind of broad categories like marketing and advertising, or travel, or website design for that matter. Mm-hmm. So that way, when you move to hiring an accountant, those categories will help you out so much. And having the substantiation for the expenses will also help trigger your memory. So that way you remember, okay, yes, this is what that expense was for. And this is when I used it in my business.
Yes, I love that. Categorizing. So when you guys are bookkeeping, and I do this too, Adrena, I'm not as good as it as you are. Let's be honest here. But I love having tabs for marketing and advertising. And like you said, travel or website or food and drink or online applications. I have that as a big category too, because I'm constantly paying for things monthly for apps and stuff. That's just the reality we live in, being online business owners. So having all those things categorized is really nice. And it also helps you remember what the charge is actually for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what else do we need to, what's this other system we need to have in place that's so helpful?
Yeah. So the second thing that I would say is the super utmost importance is to have your bank accounts separated. So you want to make sure that you have a personal bank account that's completely separate from your business bank account. So I know getting started is going to be a little hard and there's going to be a little bit of a crossover, but do your best as soon as you can to try to keep those things separated. It gets messy when you commingle everything. When it's personal and it's business, that's when it starts getting really messy. And then it starts becoming harder to do your record keeping.
Yes. I call it the be all end all of success as a business owner. If anything, and if all else fails, you have one bank account that at least you could get your monthly records from at the end of the year, and you can go through it. And I'm going to be very frank here, Adrena, and say I did that. I did that for the first 2 years when I was in business because I was a shitty bookkeeper, and I was in law school and I had way too much to do on my plate. But what I did do the right thing was get a separate business bank account. And I've talked about this a bazillion times in the mastermind, but I also talk about it on the podcast and at all of my speaking engagements. And I always say those cha-ching moments, whether someone's paying you or you're paying someone else, needs to come in and out of that account. Mm-hmm. And it's, like you said, it's so helpful for bookkeeping purposes, but it's really, really important for legal purposes too. So I'm so glad you brought that up. And so biggest takeaway, you guys, I would say is obviously we want to try our best to do all of this bookkeeping, but that's kind of step one. You have to get a bank account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I don't think, Paige, I don't think you're the only one who's done this. And I think there are people out there that still probably do this.
Yeah, which is okay because at least you have a bank account to go to. Right. That's what I like to tell people. It's okay to just do step one. I am not here to tell everyone and to coach everyone to do all the things because that's overwhelming. And no one can do all the things all at once. We all have lives. we're not in business to just be in business all the time and be workaholics. Like we're trying to have, I found this term from somebody called work-life integration. It's not really work-life balance. We're integrating those two together. And if we're trying to do that, like we just need to take baby steps here. So I love, Adrina, that you're like, think about where your expenses are going and keep track of them, put them into broad categories, because that'll at least help you kind of see what's going on with your finances and your expenses. And then also do that with a bank account. So what's next? What else do people need to think about with bookkeeping?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you need to bill your clients. So billing your clients consistently is the number 2 thing that I have on my list. Here's the thing. That's why you're in business, to make money.
We need money coming in.
So never forget this aspect. And you know what? Don't feel bad about it too. You did a service, you delivered a product. Now the exchange of funds needs to happen. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, like I have a really hard time with this one in the beginning, and I sometimes still do. I think of myself as like serving my clients, but I also have to remember that these are all business transactions. And I think, part of it is like, you just really want to do good by your clients. And I get that. And I understand that it is hard to say, this is how much you owe me. Because it's like, sometimes maybe it's like over what you had quoted your client. And
yes,
that's going to be okay too. They'll understand.
No, they totally will. Adrina, I'm so glad you hit this home today, because you face this, I face this. I think everyone who's listening today, let's all just raise our hands right now. We've all faced this weird feeling that we don't really need to bill this person because of like, I don't know what it is. Like we didn't really do that much work, or like they already paid a certain amount. I see that happen all the time where like they have a package price, but then you go above and beyond, or they ask you to do something else. And for some reason, and I see this a lot with females, and you know that I'm a huge feminist, and I could go on and on about why we do this as women. But for some reason, we don't have the audacity to like stand our ground and be like, no, my hourly rate is X and I worked 2.3 more hours for you. We need to be responsible and we need to own our time. People need to respect us as clients as well. And that's the biggest thing that I would say is put on your big girl pants and be like, no, if you're going to be my client, you need to respect me. You need to, you're in business to be in business and to make profit. We're not doing hobbies anymore. We're profit generating machines, and we're leaving our full-time jobs to make money, and we need to pay bills too. So yes, everyone, bill your clients consistently and bill them whenever you're doing a transaction for them or doing a service for them. Don't feel like if there's a hiccup in there, there's so many easy ways to resolve that. Like, sometimes people come back and say, well, why did you bill this? Once you just tell them straightforward and you feel really good about why you're billing them, they will pay you. That's the reality of the situation.
And I think it can be as easy as saying, you know what? I've already met, say I've met the number of hours that we've already agreed upon, but I still need 2 more hours to get this done. I think it's okay to communicate that to your client ahead of time so they're not blindsided by the invoice.
Yeah. Notice before you proceed. Always. That's the best practice. Always give them notice. And most of the time they're not hiring you to have you complete a certain amount of hours, but not complete the project. They want you to complete the project. So when you're like, hey, I need to work on this, like you said, Adrina, for 2 more hours, they're gonna be like, yep, sounds good. Please get it done.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we're keeping track of expenses. We're making sure we have a bank account. We're billing our clients consistently. What else are we doing?
Okay, so here's the big one. Now, I think a lot of us have a tendency to fall short in this area. So I believe this is going to be key to keeping track of your financials. And that is just monthly budgeting, planning, and forecasting. here's what I want to encourage everyone. I want to encourage everyone to set aside time in your normal work schedule to go through your bank and credit card accounts and your financial reports. What's that phrase? It's what gets measured gets improved.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure that every month you're taking a look at the whole picture. What's my income? What's my expenses? What's my net profit? And if you have not started doing this, it's okay. Start today. Make a promise to yourself that you will have consistent check-ins with your budget, either on a weekly or monthly basis. And if you find that this is one that is challenging, I think what I want to encourage you is to not be hard on yourself, but to stick with it. It will get easier as you go. So this one is a little bit kind of elusive. If you're using a software, like if you have all of your spending and income going through like an app like QuickBooks or something, you can easily take a look at your snapshot at the end of each month. So there's a reporting feature that you can just open up and download. QuickBooks has a lot of great canned reports, and I'm not trying to endorse any software, but it's the one I know the most. So I'm sure the software that you use, whether it's Wave or whatever, they have reporting features. So make sure you're taking a look at that report every month.
Yeah. And the one thing I have a question on, which I get a lot of inquiries as well from people, but I am not a bookkeeper. You are. Why, if things might be on one account like QuickBooks or on your bank account, or you're trying to do all of these things, do you have like a good suggestion for people who are getting income and expenses from all kinds of different sources, like credit cards or their CRM system or Stripe? And then they also have things coming in and out of PayPal or on Shopify. I just feel like there's so many things that people are either paying for or getting a cha-ching moment in and out of. So what would you suggest for people on that day that they're sitting down and doing their monthly financials?
Yeah. So, this is my advice. If I were to take a step back and look at the whole picture, I would suggest that you try to streamline your process as much as possible. If that means that you're connecting Square into QuickBooks, so the transactions go from Square to QuickBooks, and all you got to do is match it with the bank, then do that. So I don't know how a lot of these other apps work, but that would be my best advice, to make sure that you're getting, like PayPal can come directly into QuickBooks, and you can match those expenses and those incomes into QuickBooks. So all of these apps sort of work together and use it to your benefit. So when you start setting it up, then you can kind of see, okay, what's happening in my bank account, and is it hard to keep track of everything? Is it that I have too many revenue streams that are coming in from different places? Is there a way that I can consolidate that somehow? So take a step back and look at the larger picture and try to see, like, okay, maybe I don't need to use PayPal. Maybe I can use this other software, this other system that connects better with my bank account or with QuickBooks or with whatever app you are using.
Yeah, because we're too close to our businesses and we don't care so much about this back end financial stuff. We just want to get paid, and we want obviously our income to be more than our expenses so that we're actually making money. Yeah. And that's really the bottom line that we care about. And a lot of people that tune into the Legal Paige podcast, we're creatives, right? We're not doers, we're creators. We have a hard time with all this like business management stuff. But I find it so beneficial, Adrina. I had someone tell me to do this a ways back. I don't even think it was an accountant or a bookkeeper, actually. I think it was like a business coach. And said, if you just take this day out of your month and you look at your financials, because we never do that, you will be able to see big picture what you want to do, where you can save, where you can invest some into education, where you could trim some fat, like you said, like whether if that app isn't working as well as another app is. So very, very important. My last question I have for you on this monthly budgeting, planning, and forecasting topic is, would you suggest people do this at the beginning of the month or the end of the month?
Okay, so when it comes to the monthly process, here's my recommendation. That first week of the month, for example, we're in April. So the first week of April, I'm already looking at what my budget's going to be for April and for the rest of the year. But I'm also looking at what happened in March, and I'm comparing my expenses in like the actuals that came in for March compared to my budget for March. And I'm looking to identify if there are any ways that I could stay within my budget, or if there's something that is coming in under budget, maybe I can allocate those funds elsewhere. Maybe I want to stop doing one thing to start doing another thing. For example, I don't want to pay for a monthly service charge, so I stop that, and maybe I want to allocate those funds to development or to training or somewhere else that I think is going to come down the line, let's say in September, and I would forecast my expenses that way. Does that make sense?
Yep, totally makes sense. That's really, really helpful because I'm like, I don't know what day to do this or what time frame to do this.
Yeah. And it's always like, accounting and bookkeeping is always kind of like, I'm working a month behind, really. We're in April, but I'm working on March data for all of my clients. So it's kind of like a funky thing that happens. Forecasting is more thinking ahead. Planning is thinking ahead, and budgeting is always kind of like, okay, what happened last month? What's going to happen this month?
Love it. So I know you already kind of touched on this, but how can we trim expenses? Like I said, that phrase, cut the fat a little bit. We want to be making more money, and that involves seeing actually what we are expending in our businesses. And Adrina, I see this so often with business owners because they're like, I'm not making any money. I'm not making any money. And I'm like, well, what are you paying for?
Yeah.
Like, and how much are you charging your clients? Have you even looked at that? So what would you suggest for people?
Oh, yeah. So when you're looking at your monthly budget, kind of like in review, there are, especially when you start looking into like the individual line item transactions, then you'll start realizing there's a lot of monthly recurring charges that are automatically set up to charge either your credit card or your debit card on a monthly basis that adds up quickly. So I would start there on those monthly recurring charges, like make sure that you're getting the use out of it every month. If you're not getting the use out of it, then cut it, get rid of it. You want to make a profit here. And I think part of it is, when you're starting off with a business, you're like, yeah, I want to do this and I want to do this. So you start paying for all these things that maybe in 6 months, you're like, wait, why am I paying for this? I don't need this anymore. So then that's when you need to stop that service.
And do bookkeepers help with this? Like I'm sitting here being like, if I was a business owner 1 to 2 years in, and I feel like I can kind of handle my own budget, but the one thing I can't really see big picture is like how to trim my expenses, like how to really integrate my systems into one place to see my financials. Yeah. When is the point that I need to think about hiring a bookkeeper to do this for me? Will they do this for me?
Okay. So here's what I would say to that. I think if you're hiring an accountant, they will provide advice as needed. So if you're saying hey, I think I'm having too many monthly recurring charges, is there a way that you can look at this and see how we can kind of trim the expenses here, or maybe we can consolidate? Then the accountant will come in and say yes, okay, let's take a look at, what makes sense for your business, what doesn't make sense for your business, and let's have a conversation. Because for me, at least, I am here to come alongside the business owner and to be a key partner with them. And I think part of that is having those conversations where it's okay, you are spending a lot of money here. Does that make sense to you and your business right now? Does it make more sense for you to cut the expenses here because we know there's going to be a large expense maybe in 5 months or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
I would say if you're looking for someone to provide a larger picture analysis, you're going to want to look for an accountant rather than just a bookkeeper. A bookkeeper is really going to do the day-to-day transactional type of things. An accountant will help see on a larger scale of the forecasting piece of it, where you're going, what you're doing already, and then how's that going to affect the future.
Got it. That makes so much sense. Wow. You have given so much valuable information regarding bookkeeping. I'm like, I think I need to sit down and do some of my records right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Adrina, I'm going to give you a little email in your inbox soon. So how would you like to conclude here before I want to move on to just some lessons you've learned as a business owner?
Yeah, I think I would like, those who are listening, not to be overwhelmed by this. Don't be shy about it. But I also want you to only hire a bookkeeper when you are ready for the added expense. So when you feel the time is right for you and you've really got to trust your instinct on this one, maybe there's like a lot of transactions going through your bank account and you're starting to feel like a little overwhelmed by it. Maybe you need to start considering hiring a bookkeeper, especially if you have the added cash flow to manage that expense.
Okay. Wow. You are blowing my mind right now. I'm pretty sure a bookkeeper is in my near future. I am one of those people, just so you all that are listening, you're like, man, Paige doesn't even have a bookkeeper. No, I don't yet, because I'm an attorney and I teach tax law and I teach small business owners how to run their businesses appropriately. And I am so weirdly in control of my numbers. And I was an econ major, so I just really like spreadsheets and I really like my own budgeting. But to be very honest, I need to get someone because my financials are a little bit crazy when I've got 3 businesses, essentially, is what I'm running. So I think it's time, but it's also legal time. And I, Adrina, always like to end these guest episodes with, we've heard a lot about your business and you're a bookkeeper, and an accountant, and you're helping all of these small businesses with their record keeping. And I always like to leave Legal Paige listeners with some insight on the legal lessons and experiences that you've learned on your business journey. So I would love to hear your 3 big legal lessons that we can part with people today.
Yeah, I think the first one is honestly just creating contracts for my clients. I knew they were important, but I didn't realize how significant it would be for my business until it was actually commissioned by my insurance company and going through your mastermind. So I'm like, okay, yeah, let's get this together.
Contracts are very important, everyone. You know I preach this. So make sure you get your contracts in place when you're starting up a biz. What's the next one?
Yeah, the next one is just know what kind of business structure you are. I think as far as working with other people, it doesn't quite resonate with them what their business structure is and what the costs are associated with them. So I've learned kind of like how things cost in California while going through my own research, but it's really not cheap over here in California. But Paige, I think you have a podcast about this as well.
Yes, I do. It's called it's called like tax structures, tax designations, and business structures and I'll link that, you guys, in the show notes. I can't remember what episode it is. It's like somewhere in the 1 through 10 zone. I'm looking it up right now. Yes, Adrina, it's episode 5. It's all about tax designations and business structures and the differences between sole proprietorships, LLCs, S corporations. And like you said, it is expensive a little bit, but let me tell you, it is not as expensive as something were to happen down the line. And so I always say it's the best insurance you can get for your business is becoming a limited liability company. And what coincides with that, Adrina, is what you talked about at the very beginning of this episode, which is keeping a separate business bank account. And that's really important, like I said, for liability purposes as well. And so when you're an LLC, you have to keep a separate business bank account anyway. So yes, business structures are also really important when you're starting up your business. What is the last thing?
Yeah, definitely. So the last one is budgeting for taxes. Especially in my work, there are a lot of people out there who are not budgeting for their taxes. So come tax time, you have this huge tax bill and you're like, okay, how am I going to pay for that? So you want to get ahead of that. You want to build into your budget your annual tax charge, any related business structure costs, and your business insurance. Because as you often talk about, Paige, these items will definitely keep your business protected legally.
Yes. And you guys, we're having a really awesome guest on here soon to go over budgeting for taxes, because it is so important and is a question that I get fielded with often. So we don't need to go further down that rabbit hole, because Adrina and I could probably talk about that for another couple hours with you all. But yeah, so important. You said your big 3 legal takeaways were contracts, business structures, and taxes. And you totally warmed my heart by saying those 3, because I love talking about those to all of my listeners. Yeah. So let's leave here with some few quick tips for people as they are finishing up this episode.
Yeah. So I want those who are listening to know that when I am dealing with my clients, I do assume a level of understanding when it comes to bookkeeping. So really, there is no need to shy away from educating yourself. And I think if you have the ability to take a class at a community college, that would really help you right now and in the future. So if that's not something that's available to you, then just simply start tracking your money consistently and keeping really good records. So that way, when the trade-off happens, when you do hire someone, things will run so much easier, so much smoother, and just know you can do it. Just real quick, I had a conversation the other day with a business owner who is just getting started, and she is kind of teetering between purchasing a software or just using Excel. And here's what I told her. Excel is absolutely fine to begin with. It's when you start feeling like things are moving too quickly in terms of number of transactions for you to keep up. That's when you need to start purchasing a system. That's when you need to start leveling up. There are tons of options out there today. Pick one that works for you.
Yes. And you guys, not only does Adrina have a really awesome free download for you, but I have a free budget spreadsheet too that Adrina goes and coincides with exactly what you were just saying. Excel is absolutely fine. And mine is an Excel document. It's like a copy and paste into your Google spreadsheet, because you can take that with you whenever you are traveling remotely. And I always tell people just start there. Baby steps here. We don't need to get into QuickBooks and be all confused. And then we get overwhelmed and then we shut it down because we can't deal with it anymore. Just use Excel or spreadsheets. Right. So I have that. I will link it, you guys, in this episode show notes. But Adrina, what else do you have for them?
So I have a download. You guys can just click on this Dropbox link, and it's all for the self-employed individual to help keep you organized. So it's basically a 2-page printable. There's a section to keep your track of your monthly income, monthly expenses, any recurring charges. And then there's another section for anything extra that pertains to your business. There's also a 4th section on the first page that is where you can keep track of your quarterly estimated taxes. There's also a link on it so you can go directly to the IRS guidelines for your quarterly estimated taxes. So I know you guys have a lot of photographers out here. That 2nd page will really come in handy when it comes to tracking your mileage. You can just keep everything listed on that page. Come tax time, you've got a 2-page handy dandy worksheet.
Perfect. Adrina, you are amazing. And I have seen this handy dandy free download that you created, and everyone, it is bomb. So go get it. And she just gives you the Dropbox link to it. So it's really so easy to get. And I'll make sure to give you guys that spreadsheet as well. Adrina, you have been so wonderful today to have on and talking about record keeping and how we can kind of DIY it ourselves. And then when we should know that we're ready to hire on a bookkeeper. So Adrina, I know you are a bookkeeper, and where can people find you if they have further questions or they want to hire you?
Oh, thank you so much, Paige. It's been a pleasure to be here and to be part of your mastermind group. I feel like I've really grown and learned a lot from this experience. You can find me on Instagram at Account by Adrina. That's EDRINA. You can also find me on Facebook, Accounting by Adrina, and online. It's just www.accountingbyadrina.com.
Perfect. Everyone, make sure you go follow Adrina. Feel free to DM her, ask her any questions. She is a wealth of information on all things accounting and bookkeeping. Adrina, it's been a true pleasure to have you on. And I hope all of you listeners have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.